Quick question. What happens if you just don't work today? You get fired, you end up homeless. Well, 12,000 years ago, if you didn't work all day, they called you a perfectly normal, highly successful caveman. The truth is, our wild ancestors enjoyed life way more than you and I ever will. They had a daily routine where their actual working hours were so mind-blowingly short, you wouldn't even believe it. They didn't have the stress of bounced checks, they didn't care about inflation, and they never had to reply to an email that started with, "Per my previous message." Go to the nearest mirror and look at those dark circles under your eyes. You are looking at the victim of the biggest, dirtiest, and most successful scam in human history. A heist so perfect it turned free, happy, relaxed cavemen into stressed out, coffee-addicted corporate zombies. Today, the silent mammoth is going to reveal how we managed to trade that royal cave life for these damn ergonomic office chairs. Because while you are hitting snooze 5 times at 6 a.m., crying in your car during morning traffic, and drinking liquid anxiety just to survive a PowerPoint presentation, your hairy ancestor was probably waking up at noon, scratching his belly, and judging a bush for not having enough berries. Today we are taking the caveman to court. The charge: laziness, criminal, offensive, embarrassing laziness. The kind of laziness that would get you fired, evicted, and unfollowed on every platform simultaneously. The evidence against him devastating. This man worked 4 hours a day. He took afternoon naps. He never had a 5-year plan. He never optimized his morning routine. He never built a personal brand. He never once woke up at 5 a.m. to get ahead of the competition. He had no competition. He had a spear, a cave, and apparently that was enough. No hustle, no grind, no LinkedIn post about his journey. Just a man, some rocks, and absolutely zero guilt about any of it. And if that wasn't enough, the prosecution has one more piece of evidence. This man, this criminal, never paid taxes. Not once, not a single payment for his entire life. The audacity. The prosecution is confident. The case is airtight. This man is going down. There's just one problem. When you actually look at the evidence, the real evidence, the archaeological evidence, the anthropological evidence, the kind of evidence that took scientists decades to dig up and verify, the case against this man doesn't just fall apart. It flips completely, because it turns out the caveman wasn't the lazy one. He wasn't the primitive one. He wasn't the one who got it wrong. And by the end of this trial, you're not going to be angry at him. You're going to be angry at whoever convinced you that working 8 hours a day is just how life works. Court is now in session. The prosecution's first argument is simple. This man was lazy. He didn't work. He contributed nothing to society. Your Honor, let's look at his actual schedule. 30,000 years ago, somewhere in what is now France, our suspect woke up not because an alarm went off, not because his boss sent a quick reminder at 7 a.m. He woke up because the sun existed and it was doing its job for free. He looked outside. It was cold. It was always cold. Ice Age Europe was basically one giant freezer with occasional wolves. And yet this man was not stressed about it. His job title was hunter. Archaeological evidence from sites like Dolny Věstanice in Czech Republic shows that large game hunting happened 2, maybe 3 times a week. Not every day. 2 to 3 times a week. On the other days, his job description was essentially walk around, see what's out there, come back. The prosecution calls this laziness. His tribe called it scouting. And when he did hunt, he wasn't alone. His entire group hunted together, coordinated, planned. One successful hunt fed everyone for days. The prosecution says he didn't work hard enough. One mammoth disagrees. Now, the number the prosecution really doesn't want you to hear: 3 to 5 hours per day. That was his entire workday. Not 3 to 5 hours of meetings before the real work started. 3 to 5 hours total. and then completely, aggressively, scientifically documented done. Anthropologist Marshall Salins reviewed decades of research and called hunter-gatherers the original leisure class. The man who studied the hardest period in human history looked at the data and said, these people had more free time than anyone who came after them. You work 8 hours a day and feel behind. He worked 4 and felt finished. Let that sit for a second. The prosecution calls him lazy. The evidence calls him the last human who actually knew when to stop. And if you think the workday is the most embarrassing part of this case, wait until you see what this man's skeleton has to say. Archaeologist Clark Spencer Larson spent decades digging up prehistoric skeletons across Europe and comparing them to every human population that came after. Farmers, medieval peasants, modern humans. And what he found was so uncomfortable that it genuinely changed how scientists understand human health. Our suspect was taller than the farmers who replaced him. His bones were denser. His teeth had almost 0 cavities, no signs of chronic disease, no signs of malnutrition. None. The prosecution called him primitive. His skeleton called him peak human. And here's the part that should genuinely ruin your afternoon. The farmers who came after him, shorter, weaker bones, cavities everywhere, malnutrition showing up in skeletons for the first time in human history. The people who invented agriculture, specifically to have more food, were somehow eating worse than the guy with a spear in a cave. You go to the gym 3 times a week, you take supplements, you track your protein, and you still have back pain and vitamin D deficiency. This man hunted, walked, and slept under the stars, and his femur was stronger than yours. But we still haven't talked about what this man did after work. And trust me, the prosecution really wishes we wouldn't. The prosecution's final argument. Yes, fine. He worked less. Yes, fine. His bones were better, but surely this man was miserable, lonely, scared. One bad winter away from total collapse. Your Honor, let's talk about what this man actually did after work. After 3 to 5 hours of hunting and gathering, our suspect had the rest of the day completely free. And what did he do with it? The archaeological record across Ice Age Europe tells a story that nobody in your history class ever mentioned. He made art, not because anyone asked him to, not because it paid well, because he felt like it. The cave paintings found at Lascaux in France, painted 17,000 years ago, are so detailed and so beautiful that when archaeologists first discovered them in 1940, they refused to believe prehistoric humans made them. And here's the detail that nobody talks about. Those paintings are deep inside the cave. In complete darkness, this man crawled into the darkest part of a cave with a small animal fat lamp and painted a running horse so perfectly it looks alive. That is not a man who is barely surviving. That is a man with opinions about art. He made music. A 40,000-year-old flute carved from a vulture bone was found in a cave in Germany. 40,000 years ago, somewhere in Ice Age Europe, a man finished his 4-hour workday, sat down, and decided what this situation really needed was a musical instrument. The prosecution calls him primitive. The flute calls him a creative genius. And here's the final piece of evidence. This man was never alone. His group of 20 to 30 people were bound by one unbreakable rule: share everything. Anthropologists call it obligatory sharing. If someone had a bad hunt, the group fed them. If someone got sick, the group covered them. No one went hungry while others ate. No one faced disaster alone. The most respected person in the group wasn't the one who accumulated the most, it was the one who gave the most away. You have 400 friends on social media, and you've never felt more alone in your life. This man had 25 people who were legally, culturally, and socially required to have his back. forever. The prosecution says he was miserable. The evidence says he was the last human being in history who actually had it figured out. And now, Your Honor, we need to talk about what destroyed all of this, because it wasn't a predator, it wasn't an ice age, it wasn't a natural disaster, it was a plant. For 200,000 years, this man lived, hunted, painted, made music, and shared everything he had. And then, approximately 12,000 years ago, something happened that changed the entire trajectory of human history. Someone planted wheat. It seemed like a good idea at the time. More food. Staying in one place, building things. Progress, and for about 5 minutes it probably was. But here's what the archaeological record actually shows. The moment humans started farming, average height dropped by several inches across Europe. Dental cavities exploded overnight. Signs of malnutrition appeared in human bones for the first time in history. Working hours went from 4 to 12. And for the first time ever, some people could own more land than others, which meant for the first time ever, most people owned almost nothing. Farming didn't just change how we ate. It invented the landlord. It invented taxes. It invented the concept of working yourself to exhaustion for someone else's benefit and calling it normal. Pulitzer Prize-winning author Jared Diamond called agriculture the worst mistake in the history of the human race. And he wasn't being dramatic. He was reading the bones. The caveman never voted for this. He never chose it. He never signed anything. One day, his descendants just started doing it, and 12,000 years later, here you are. Alarm clock. Traffic. Inbox full of emails. Wondering why you're exhausted all the time and guilty about it. The real defendant isn't the caveman. It's the wheat field. And it has been getting away with it for 12,000 years. Ladies and gentlemen, we have heard all the evidence. This court finds the caveman not guilty. And this court finds farming guilty. Guilty of the 4-hour workday's murder. Guilty of inventing the landlord, the tax collector, and the Monday morning meeting. Guilty of taking a species that was doing absolutely fine, thank you very much, and convincing them that working until exhaustion was called progress. The caveman didn't fail us. We failed him. Somewhere between his cave and your cubicle, we forgot that humans were never supposed to be this tired. That Sunday night feeling, that's not you. That's 300,000 years of instinct looking at your week ahead and saying, we did not evolve for this. He had 4 hours of work, a sky full of stars, and people who would never let him fall. We had all of that once. If any of this made you see the world a little differently, hit subscribe. There are a lot more stories where this came from, and every single one of them is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about how humans are supposed to live.